What is your opinion, Dan, when it comes to that whole perspective as far as cows are destroying the planet?
Well, before you even say anything, Dan, I want to ask you, how do you control when you walk out and your cow farts? And how do you even withstand the fact that it's causing global warming
Oh
and
man,
it's just destroying the planet?
how
What do
can I
you
live
do?
with myself?
You
Yeah.
have like plugs, you just go and like plug them up to keep them from
Yeah,
farting or
yeah, it's interesting. It's like the system's going to destroy itself. Like, oh my gosh, are fish going to destroy the ocean? Are birds going to destroy the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Are cows going to destroy the planet because they're grazing grass? It's ridiculous. They are the environment. They're not destroying the environment.
What is up, you guys? This is Orion and Dustin, and this is the Forged by Faith podcast. All right. We have a special guest joining us today. His name is Daniel Clark of Rooted Vision Valley Farm. Dan is a regenerative farmer specializing in raising grass-fed cows and sheep, plus free-range chicken and eggs. We've been looking forward to this podcast for a long time. I know I have. It covers a lot of topics that I have interest in. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited. I just think that this is a fun conversation to have. Obviously ties up a lot of my thinking throughout the day and how to do regenerative farming even better. And so having a discussion with you guys and getting more information out to the public, all your listeners, will be fun.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. We talk about this stuff all the time, but now we're going to put it out there and share this information with our listeners. So first off, Dan, what is regenerative farming and how did you get started in the business?
Yeah, it is. There's kind of a wide range of people that are involved in regenerative farming. There's different people that try to basically restore soil health and natural systems. That might be kind of the best definition because there's all sorts of different methods people employ to try to do that. But some of the basic principles that people agree on is that putting organic matter back into the soil is completely necessary, minimizing disturbance to soil so that all sorts of natural things can happen. Roots can stay in the ground throughout even non-growing periods. That helps soil revive earlier in the spring. Having animals impact whatever is growing. Even if you were growing a crop, you could have animals graze the residue of whatever is left over, and that would help improve the soil too. But if we're going to zoom out just a little bit, I think regenerative farming has to include improving soil and then plants and animals that graze those plants and animals or people, hopefully mostly people, that eat those animals. So
Yeah.
there should be benefits in all of those. And when you increase one, you should increase the next one. And it should come full cycle. And it really has, because as I've seen health benefits in my own life, it's made me want to do better for my soil even more so. So
Yeah. I didn't want to put the tinfoil hat on right away, but I think I have to. Let's see if we can get kicked off YouTube in the first 3 minutes here. When you say regenerate the soil and make it healthier again, like what has gone wrong? Why are we at this stage in the history of humanity where we have to change our methods to get back to the method that it was for eons? So if you just want to touch on that real quick without going too
well,
on the rabbit
I
hole.
mean, every time humans get involved in things, in agriculture, there's benefits, and it's usually whatever people are focused on, they can make that thing be more beneficial. And then there's collateral damage. And I think that from the Industrial Revolution and large scale farming and mass use of chemicals, those things have, people focused on the purpose of selling more pounds of whatever they're selling. whether that's meat, whether that's vegetables. Big machines and lots of chemicals can help sell more pounds. Now, is the number of pounds they're selling, is any of that food healthy? No, but those gigantic tomatoes grown with chemical fertilizer, they kind of look like a tomato. It just doesn't have a tenth of the nutrients that a tomato used to have.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind
So
of
what
looks
you're
like
saying
food.
is these corporations are out to make money. I'm blown away. I'm blown away, and they're going to sacrifice our health.
There's definitely a
I
lot of that.
hold on. Not
Definitely
on
a
this
lot of
podcast.
that.
Yeah,
And
no, we're not going to say that.
Let me ask you this, Dan. So when I look at the people that are farming around my property, and I read the labels of the things that they're spraying on these things, and they say do not consume, death upon consumption, but yet they're being sprayed all over our crops. What's up with that?
yeah, somebody somewhere had a study that said that's fine, just don't eat them. That'll kill you. And people run with those kinds of studies. The USDA, I think the American public has leaned on the USDA as the end all be all for food safety. And we treat that as like, I won't get sick from a bacteria because the USDA is hyper focused on fighting bacteria that might be on food. Okay, but what about, is the food nutritious? The USDA isn't this super policeman of making sure food is nutritious. And so as it's gotten less and less nutritious, and then those ingredients have been processed more and more to go further and, benefit, as Orion was saying, the large corporations that process food more and more, but do they benefit the end consumer more and more? I would look around at the general public and say, not a chance.
Yeah. Let's say this company, we'll call them Blonsanto. They're not out to get anybody and make any profit and make anybody sick by spraying on our food supply. Essentially, they're upstanding business. Blonsanto is.
Yeah, yeah. That's the rumor. That's the gossip on the street.
Yeah,
They're just here to help you.
yeah.
And
They've
I
never
know
been
farmers,
sued by anybody and don't have to pay out retributions. And yeah, they're an
right,
upstanding company. Blonsanto.
right. Blonde Santo, they're just there to help farmers. If farmers have a weed problem, they can help.
Yeah,
If after they have a weed problem and they sprayed their products on there, then they have their crop is failing. Oh, they have a solution for that too. This chemical fertilizer. If you have a health problem, well, they don't. Oh wait, no, they have some pharmaceutical drugs too
yeah.
that can
Why
help you with those problems that might cause other problems for you. But don't worry, they're soon going to produce a drug for you to fix that one too.
Yeah.
why aren't I able to tour Blonde Santo's facilities?
uh,
So wait a
Nothing to
second.
see,
They're
probably.
selling you the problem and the solution. Imagine that. Imagine that. Let's step back a second and just you want to give a short history on your farm specifically and how you came about getting the land and basically rehabilitating it to what it is now.
Yeah, this farm that I'm sitting on right now, my dad bought in 1977, and he was 40 years old, and it was a lifelong dream of him to be a farmer. He was an engineer, and he kept his engineering job and paid for the farm um, and loved being out here. And he mostly grew corn and cattle, but then also some years he did some alfalfa, pinto beans, and pretty much just this follow the herd conventional method, because he didn't start out as a farmer, so he just looked for advice from people that would give it, and that's kind of the advice that he would get. He loved having animals, but didn't think like an only animal based system was the way to go. That's not the advice that he got. So he did the best with what he had, and a lot of things were good, honestly. He kept the place going for a long time, but When he passed away in 2021, I guess it was a little bit later when me and my brothers decided how to split things up. But I took these 80 acres that I own now and started just doing everything in a regenerative manner as much as I know how, and then trying to learn as much as possible as I've had successes and some failures, and just learning how to make the soil perform at its best and grow better plants and healthier animals.
Yeah, I hopefully that came through. I pulled up a quick screen share of the farm. I'll edit it in if not, but yeah, it's a great place. And how many acres is it again?
It's about 80 acres.
80 acres.
Yep. And a lot of it's irrigated. About 52 acres is irrigated, and so that helps for up in my production ability, not having to depend solely on rainfall. That's hard to do here in Colorado, eastern
And then,
Colorado.
and then so just to let you guys know, full disclosure, Dustin and I both fill our freezers up every year when Dan brings the cows to slaughter. So the meat is phenomenal, grass fed, grass finished, and then weekly sometimes we do eggs as well. So it's got both spectrums there covered of the things I like to eat on a daily basis. So it's definitely high quality food, locally produced, and Dustin and I and a lot of our friends in the community, we actually support the farming practices that Dan undertakes there. So Dustin, before we move on, any questions for Dan about the actual farm and
Yeah, man. How do you get
daily
those
operation?
eggs? How do you get those eggs so yellow? That yolk is just like this beautiful bright yellow. What's the secret there?
The secret is that's what a chicken wants to do. And farming methods have gotten in the way of that being normal. It seems weird because it's not allowed to be that way. More often than not, you go to the store and you don't find a bright yellow or even slightly orangish yolk. You find pasty yolks.
Yeah,
I actually was cooking some eggs. I just ate lunch right before this, and it always surprises me. My eggs, you flip one over, you get an over easy eggs, and if you break a yolk on one of mine, it doesn't run all over the pan. It just kind of like a drop or two comes out, and so um, yeah, it just everything about it seems different, doesn't it? It
yeah,
seems like how it probably should be. And when we've lived in a system that's not normal for so long, things that are normal freak us out or
exactly.
surprise us at least. And a chicken runs around and pecks bugs, finds seeds that have fallen to the ground, scratches the ground to see if it can find anything just under the surface. And my chickens, they can go from my house to Nebraska if they wanted to. They don't have any restraints on them, but I train them when they're young to know they have a safe zone on my farm at night, which is when chickens are most likely to get killed by a predator. Um, and so I have this it's a baggage claim cart from the airport that I turned into a chicken coop. And so they go in there. There's a door that closes at night, keeps them safe, and so they stick pretty close to that thing. I mean, within quarter mile, and they find what chickens want to find. I give them a little bit of grain in a 5-gallon bucket out there they can peck around on, and they usually do that for a few minutes in the morning. And the grain in that is no corn and no soy, and all organic, but so some high quality type grain, and they do good getting a little bit of that, but then they don't want just that. They want to find a grasshopper. They want to go find a worm and pull it out of the ground and feast on it. And chickens like to grab whatever they got that's pretty tasty and cluck around and show all the other ones they've got it before they eat it. So they like
Wait,
to do
so
that too.
so what you're telling me is when you keep a chicken in its natural habitat, that you have better quality eggs and a better quality overall chicken. Unbelievable.
It is. It's fun. It's so simple. It's funny, isn't it?
We're
I
gonna
think
get
the
so banned from
industrial
YouTube for telling the truth, guys. It's wild.
I think
What I,
amongst a lot of the benefits of the Industrial Revolution and, combustion motors and all those types of things, I don't want to live a life with, no machines or shut off electricity or whatever. But we get to this point where like, oh, there's probably a tech solution. There's probably a mechanical solution. There's probably a massive scale that this would be just more efficient on. And sometimes we forget we're not machines. And what feeds us shouldn't be machines. And when we start treating our animals like they're machines, they just crank out eggs and you just feed them in a little cage. You're not getting what you used to. You're not getting what God created us to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like you were saying, it is different. So cracking an egg from your place is different than cracking a traditional egg from the store. Eating a steak from the store is very different than eating a steak from your farm. And so, like Orion was saying, our freezers are packed full of this amazing meats and beef, and it's just so good. And we love it. I got a cow coming. I don't know when, soon, right?
Yeah.
Pretty
And
soon.
yeah, it feeds the family for the year. And man, we just run downstairs and grab some beef and cook it up. And it's wonderful to know where your food supply comes from, man. And very blessed.
Well, let's dig into that topic right there. Now, obviously, from a taste perspective, grass-fed, grass-finished, free range is going to be a lot. It's going to taste different. It's going to taste better. But why do we want to focus in on those types of foods, Daniel? Like from the health benefit for human beings, like grass-fed versus traditional,
Right.
say. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I think so. Years ago, we tried here on the farm to do a grass finished animal, and we had always grain finished some steers and kept them for ourselves. Not really done too much sales off of the farm, but we would slaughter young steers at about 2 years old and grain finish them for the last 120 days of their life, or maybe 150 days. And corn and molasses and normal cow grain type of stuff. And so we tried to do a grass finished one because we heard it's healthier and thought, oh, we'll give it a try. But we just did everything the same. We slaughtered it about 2 years old, which was in March. And we just fed it hay before that because there's nothing growing that time of year. We didn't know. And it was horrible. It was a horrible taste.
Hmm.
It was chewy. It was painful to eat beef, and that's not the way that it's supposed to be. Um, so now that I've learned that raising grass-fed beef is more of an art form than the grain-fed conventional beef finishing model, the time of year that you slaughter an animal is very important to taste and flavor. And actually, the health of the animal is at its peak at a certain time every year. And the certain time every year that is right about now, because grass has been green for the most amount of time. So cows have been grazing green grass for the longest they can in at this latitude. Since we're not in the jungle or on the equator, they've been grazing green grass as long as it's green here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And so that's when it's going to be the most flavorful. That's when my animals are at their peak health, is this time of year. And so they can actually get fat, get some back fat on just getting fed straight grass, which is easy to do with corn. You overfeed them corn and they overeat it and they gain fat a lot easier than a grass-fed animal will. And when they don't have any choice of what to eat, it's only what you give them in a trough in a corral that has no other food available. They eat that. Mine get a selection. They get what some people call a salad bar every day, open salad bar. They get to pick what they want. They get to graze, next to their moms and sisters and brothers, and they're all grazing together, finding what's best. I'll even see a mama cow go over to her baby that's learning how to graze and headbutt them away from plants that they don't want them to eat.
Yeah.
It's like it carries on. So
There you
so
go.
there's benefits, I guess, just so I've kind of focused in here on flavor and that on grass-fed beef, but there's lots of health benefits too that I hinted at. And some of those things I think that are a focus are in the fat. So the
Yeah.
fat that a cow puts on that's grass-fed is going to be high in omega-3s compared to omega-6 fatty acids. And sometimes, not every time, but they can have more yellow in their fat just visually when you look at it. I think that's especially true after you cook it. You can see kind of the yellow coming out on a steak, and that is from high beta carotene. It's
Yeah.
kind of a vitamin A. So that kind of nutrient is available in the grass, but feeding a cow grain washes it out. It really makes their fat white, and puts a lot of grain fed puts a lot of omega-6 fatty acid in the meat. Um, to give you an example that I have heard is that grass-fed beef is about 1-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio,
Yeah.
and grain-fed beef is about 20-to-1
Yeah.
omega-6 to omega-3. So way more.
Yeah. So it kind of what Dan's saying here, and I'll simplify this. I say this all the time. Essentially, in our culture, Americans have become lab rats for the corporations and big pharma and big agriculture and big sugar. So we're kind of like the test subjects. And if you look at what goes in our food versus what goes in the food around the rest of the world, you can definitely see a big difference between the ingredients in processed food. Now, to break that down, when it comes to animals and the protein sources we're consuming, a sick animal is not going to be as good and nutritious to eat for us as an animal that's eating what it's naturally designed to eat. So there's a big difference between grass-fed, grass-finished, and grain-fed and grain-finished. Not only the taste, but the health benefits it can have for said consumer. Now, if it's eat ice cream and chips and fast food and just garbage versus grain-fed, grain-finished, well, go for the grain-fed, grain-finished. You're
Yeah.
better off that route. But if you can get locally sourced grass-fed, grass-finished beef, that's the choice you want to make. And when you were talking there, Dan, it really is amazing that the time of year can make a big difference on the taste of the meat. And when we were talking about that last week, it's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense, because I have had some grass-fed, grass-finished beef that just does not taste good. And it probably was due to the fact they are rushing the process, trying to put profits above quality of product. And that makes sense.
Yeah, this might shock you, but there's a fair number of grass-fed beef producers that have much bigger ranches than mine and bigger operations, more cattle, that they wouldn't eat grass-fed beef. So why would they care about quality when they don't believe in the product they're selling? They just want a premium for grass-fed beef.
Yeah, they're cashing in on the
It,
popularity of it.
yeah, if it doesn't matter to them, how can they actually care about what they're producing for their customer the way that they should?
Yeah.
Let's just say this, man. If you can if you can buy from somebody where they're willing for you to come tour their farm, they're willing for you to come check out their operation, show you what's going on there. That's the kind of operation I believe you wanna purchase from. You want to see what are they doing with their cows? Where are they getting this from? What are they feeding their cows? What are they doing? And I know, Dan, that you love to give tours of your farm. You love to bring your customers to your place and say, this is what we do. And I know you have some pride in that, and it's really cool. And I think it's awesome to see that your cows. I mean, I always joke with people. I say, you treat your cows better than I treat my children. And I just joke about that. But man, it's
Except
really,
when I
it's
take them to
really,
slaughter.
what's that?
Except the day that I take them to slaughter.
Yeah, exactly. Except for that, but even that, I was thinking about like the stress level of the cow, right, and the stress level of when you do slaughter, and how does that affect your cows in the way you even talk to your cows? How do you keep the stress level down, and how does that play into their actual taste?
Yeah, it's funny it does. And calm cows are tastier. Just the way that you don't get cortisol cycling through a cow that's just anxiety ridden all throughout her life and fearing people. And hunters know this, that if you scare an antelope and it runs and runs and runs, gets adrenaline pumping through, and then you shoot it, it's not going to taste good.
Yeah.
But somehow we forget that with our domestic livestock. Yeah, I move my cows every day onto fresh pasture, and it's, one of the highlights of my day every day, because the cows depend on me, and I let them on to exactly what they were made to do. They're happy. They might be mooing a little bit when I walk out there, and then I reel up a little electric line and let them onto fresh pasture, and they just go quiet and start grazing. All you can hear is like grass ripping and all these happy cows and sheep grazing together. It's like, all right, nailed it again. One more day. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, just the level of calm and things being how they should be, brings my cortisol levels down too, probably.
Now, I
Everyone's
remember
mom
you,
on the farm.
yeah,
Right.
I remember you saying something that you'll occasionally bring your cows on a joyride. Is that true?
On a joyride. I don't remember this. What do you
Did,
say?
did you did you say you'd trailer them up every once in a while and give them
Oh
a little
yeah.
tour?
Little trailer training, just so that they know that the trailer's not a bad thing. It's just, you jump in there, and if you go somewhere and good things happen, then they don't mind the trailer so much.
Hmm.
And I don't think I've ever actually just gone for a joyride around with them, but I loaded them up and trained them that it's not that bad of a deal.
Which is smart. It's smart. If they knew what was coming down the pipeline, they might be maybe would be resistant. But
Yeah, I try to keep it to one bad day on the farm for my cows. I know a lot of people have one relationship with animals, and it's either like a pet, fluffy, precious little teacup poodle or something like that.
yeah,
And I'm not against that. That's fine. But people have had different relationships with animals all throughout history, where you look at that animal and you're like, I'm depending on you for my life.
yeah,
And that animal also, in turn, looks at you and like, where's the grass? I depend on you for my life. And there's this mutuality, this interdependence of man and beast that we forget we still have, because we don't look them in the eye as much. It's just in the grocery store. It's just in,
yeah.
you know, Walmart has milk. Oh, it comes from cows. Like I depend on a cow for milk. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought I
That
depended
burger
on
doesn't
Walmart.
come from a tree. What?
Right. Yeah. Oh, where's the salsa tree? uh, but I think it's beautiful. I know there's an act of violence there at the end for the cow to become meat, but I take good care of these cows. I fight for them to stay alive, to have the best care, and I take care of them, and then afterwards they take care of me and my customers in providing the highest quality of meat. And I really think that that's how it's supposed to be. There's supposed to be a little bit more of a relationship there. I'm not saying everybody needs to be a farmer, but everybody needs to be more aware of their farming practices and
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
their eating habits um, stir up in farming practices.
Yeah, where their food comes from, and there's a
Yep.
massive disconnect right there between what we eat, how we eat, and how often we eat, and where our food comes from, and the men and women that are in the supply chain from the farm down to getting the the slaughtering process to packaging to getting it to the store. There's a massive disconnect that we have as a culture. I do want to pick at this because we're kind of in the proximity of it, but within clown world, our modern culture, the cow has been absolutely demonized. It's responsible for climate change, climate catastrophe, you name it. And the mainstream media, social media, celebrities, even athletes, everyone is out to get the cow. It's really been the problem that we have of the 21st century, and it's really not like that at all. It's a false narrative. So, what is your opinion, Dan, when it comes to that whole perspective as far as cows are destroying the planet?
Well, before you even say anything, Dan, I want to ask you, how do you control when you walk out and your cow farts? And how do you even how do you even withstand the fact that it's causing global warming
Oh
and
man,
it's just destroying the planet?
how
What do
can I
you
live
do?
with myself?
Yeah.
You have like plugs, you just go and like plug them up to keep them from
Yeah,
farting, or
yeah, it's interesting. It's like the system's gonna destroy itself. Like, oh my gosh, are fish gonna destroy the ocean? Are birds gonna destroy the atmosphere?
Yeah.
Are cows gonna destroy the planet because they're grazing grass? It's ridiculous. They are the environment. They're not destroying the environment.
Yeah.
absolutely.
They were made for this place. And so I think when people say that though, I can't completely disagree with them because it's not always the cow, but it's sometimes how people raise the cow.
Yeah.
I say it's funny sometimes. I fed a few bales of hay to my cows. The industry standard is about 6 months of the year you feed hay to your cows when grass isn't growing. And I, just let my grass grow in different parcels and then grazed it all throughout the winter and only fed hay for 20 days last year. Um, and that's different. I didn't have to drive a tractor across the land to cut hay, rake hay, bale hay, then stack hay on my farm and then unstack it when it's time to feed a cow. I mean, how much diesel was that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, it's probably 5 to 10 gallons every day just to feed cows that I just didn't do. I just figured out a different way to do it. And that's as much money savings as concern about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But a cow producing carbon dioxide out of what they breathe and belch in the rumination process,
Yeah.
in what they might fart, as Dustin so concernedly mentioned. um, what happens to that? Does it go up to some I'm destroying the planet zone in the atmosphere? Or does it go down to the grass that breathes CO2?
Hmm.
If the grass breathes it and the cows eating grass produces more grass to grow, the cow's a net carbon sink.
Yeah.
It's taking more carbon out of the atmosphere than that cow is putting in. And it's in part because of the cow doing what a cow does that's causing that. If you're allowing them to graze grasslands are stimulated by cows grazing. And what I mean by that is they grow, a cow eats them, and then they have to grow again. And then a cow eats them again and they have to grow again. So if you can do that in a way that isn't harming the grass, where you're just like overgrazing the same plants every day. Mine is a rotational graze. So part of the regenerative process is giving an appropriate rest period to those plants
Yeah.
so they can regrow 18, 24. I mean, there was times where my 48-inch T-posts, I couldn't see across the field. I couldn't tell I had any posts in my field because the grass had grown over 48 inches.
That's
Wow.
wild.
That's early in the spring and some was going to seed, so it's not all just palatable blades of grass, but
Yeah.
still, that's like um, that's sucking so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. You can't even compare what a cow produces to what the grass is reversing.
Yeah. Yeah. And carbon footprint, that's such a buzzword these days. And there's
It's
this like,
fun.
got to reduce our carbon footprint, and how they're going to do that. That's a whole other tinfoil hat topic right there. But they want to reduce our carbon footprint. But then you have this method of farming that actually does that does reduce the carbon footprint. You don't need machines out there running off diesel. You don't need to produce hay and feed and everything. They're eating the plants that they're supposed to eat right there, right in front of them. And it's such a buzzword. And another thing I wanted to pick at too was the humanity side of things. And you hear vegans shout about this all the time, that, killing a cow is the worst thing ever. And it's a tragedy. And how can we do this to this poor animal? But what they always glaze over is the amount of life that is destroyed when it comes to monocropping, meaning if you have just a plot of land that you're farming and it's corn only, that would be a monocrop. When you're tilling that land, all sorts of little animals, voles, rabbits, mice, birds, whatever, everything's getting kind of sucked up into that. And a lot
Yep.
more life is destroyed monocropping this food that the vegetarians and vegans like than it is with just raising cattle. Care to chime in on that? Weigh in on that for us, Dan.
Yeah, I think I've learned how much truth there is to that, just seeing so much more wildlife in my pastures. There's probably about, one day I counted over 40 turkeys walking around. Three hens had decided that me growing tall grass made it a safe place for them to raise baby turkeys. And I've seen them on my farm probably every other day all year long, just walking around. And I slow my four wheeler down when I come up on them, and they walk slowly away from me. And walking through the pastures like I do every day, in the tall grass, sometimes you see little creepy crawlies watching out for your footsteps in front of you, which, I don't really like snakes, but anything else is kind of interesting. Every once in a while I'll see a snake, but honestly, in the tall grass, a snake really doesn't try to bite you. It tries to go away into the other tall grass. And also I have quite a few bull snakes, so they're kind of mean, but they keep the real bad snakes, the rattlesnakes, away. Um, yeah, they're immune to rattlesnake venom, so it's upping the number of bull snakes. A bull snake doesn't like a cornfield.
Yeah.
They might occasionally find one, and on that too, a turkey doesn't like a cornfield because something can sneak up on it really easy. A grass field, especially a healthy grass field that has fairly tall grass, the turkey can find places to hide, but it also can stick its head up and make sure nothing's sneaking up on it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this double benefit for the turkey. Moles. I hadn't really seen very many moles on the farm. I mean, this is the farm I grew up on. I've spent almost 40 years up out here, and hadn't really seen many moles. You'd see some signs of moles here and there. We'd try and leave poison pellets out for moles back in the day because they'd dig in the side of a ditch bank and make water spill everywhere. Um, I've just kind of embraced that natural problem. I just plug the holes when I see a hole in the ditch, and then I see these moles in the pasture, and they're just kind of this fascinating little chubby mouse. They don't scurry around and run up your leg or anything. They kind of just march real slow. They cause this disturbance in the soil that their digging does, that actually helps the plant roots get stimulated to grow in different ways and different pathways they can grow through. And yeah, there's probably lots of other things that I don't even know what they're doing, but I'm letting nature balance itself.
Yeah.
I'll say one more thing about that is grasshoppers. This year there was just a ton of grasshoppers, not just at my house, but people in the country, people that were next to like a little green belt in town were like, wow, there's so many grasshoppers. There's grasshoppers every step. There's like 100 that fly up.
Yeah.
And I was kind of getting a little bit depressed about them because I was committed to not using any sort of pesticide to kill them. And there was a lot. You could see the impact on the grass walking through it, that it was hurting because of how many grasshoppers. And I was just thinking and praying one day, and I was like, God, you know all the ways a grasshopper might add a benefit to the ecosystem that I'm creating with my cattle and sheep and chickens. And I don't know if it was in some ways because of the grasshoppers, but mid-July it was looking really bad. Grass was hurting from grasshoppers. And then I grazed my cows through anyway. I prayed. I was thinking about it. I don't know that I came to a great solution, but it grew back so amazing. The grass after I grazed through in July, when it grew back and I grazed it again here last week, some of those same parts I was worried about. That grass looks amazing. It looks extremely palatable to a cow. Looks like healthy grass. I still see a few grasshoppers hopping around here and there, but I didn't try to like nuke my entire field and ruin every sort of small biological life in it because I'm mad at a grasshopper. And I think there's probably a benefit I'm not aware of and don't know.
Yeah.
And I did buy about 160 more chickens because they'd like to eat those grasshoppers. I'd
Yeah.
like to let them eat those grasshoppers, and
Yeah. The
so maybe
feast.
we'll find some middle road there.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is the biodiversity on your land is through the roof. There's all
Yes.
sorts of things interacting with each other, flowing together. It's very beneficial for all organisms that are operating on the land.
Yeah, and it's competitive, and I want it to be a little bit competitive. So the grass, it gets grazed, and that's an impact that it has to deal with, and I want it to grow deeper roots because it got grazed, which it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And then I want to give it enough time that it actually does heal and stabilize and start growing a healthy plant again. But then, the wildlife, the diverse wildlife, it all gets pressure from each other, and it has to balance, and it has to find this, in between zone where I'm not mad that there are coyotes, but if they start attacking my chickens too much, I'm gonna make sure there's less coyotes around.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's always some cost, and not getting too excited about the negative things that I see, and allowing the ecosystem to kind of balance the way that it would naturally with some of my input. I usually say that I'm farming in sync with nature.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be the manager over this land. I'm trying to be the manager over even this wildlife. I'm not trying to let something run wild. Well, I let some things run wild, but
Yeah.
I'm not letting things get out of control and ridiculous. But even, letting some thistle grow.
Yeah.
What does that ground need a thistle there for? Probably something. I don't know. I don't let thistle grow all over the place, but the main way that I do that is I make sure my grass is getting the water and the impact and the health that it needs. So I'm more focused on growth instead of death, on promoting life in my pastures, um, on my property, and looking to do that, I think is gonna already has caused more benefit than trying to spray all those bad weeds or kill all those bad pests.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man,
Go
I
ahead.
think like what you're saying is like when you're relating your farm and you're and taking care of it and doing what you're doing, I kind of just look at what God ordained for our lives, right? And getting back to our roots of what Jesus created us to be as men and as leaders and as fathers of our homes, and that we don't need to disrupt everything. When things attack us, we just need to handle that specific thing, and we need to continue to promote life and to continue to generate life, and not make such a big deal about these attacks, but just snuff them out and keep moving towards Jesus. It's kind of like that verse in the Bible that says, "And all things work together for those who love the Lord." And you're showing that, you're living that example, not only within your family, Dan, but within your farm, right? And you're seeing these beautiful things happen that God designed, and nature ultimately it runs its course through your farm, and you can see the benefits from your cows, from the grass. I was thinking of the grasshoppers. Maybe it's a pruning process. Maybe they're kind of damaging the plant so the plant can heal itself
Yeah.
bigger and better. You know how like you chop your bushes off, when spring happens, or and when about to when you want things to grow, right? And
Right.
maybe that's part of that process. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing to not only see it in the setting of farming, but being able to apply those exact things to our life as we grow as people in the Lord. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are
And
definitely lots of crossover lessons to spiritual life, biblical living, and farming.
yeah.
And I think that stewardship of the land, where I'm not trying to be kind of a egomaniacal controller of everything that happens, and um, where I'm trying to understand and learn and test things out and get better and not force everything to be, this kind of manicured perfection that needs lots of chemicals and um,
GMOs.
GMOs, interventions,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things, tons of vaccinations and antibiotics and yeah.
But dude, I thought Teslas came from trees. Am I mistaken?
I think I think you are. Yep.
That's
Speaking,
the great disillusionment, right? The
yeah.
great disillusionment that your Tesla comes from a tree, and that your meat comes from something that's so pure that you can just consume it, and that your Cheerios and your Lucky Charms and your your Cinnamon Toast Crunch is, I mean, it's so pure and organic that you should consume as much as you can and be okay, right?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of maniacal, I get a ton of hate from vegans online all the time about my dietary uh, choices and practices. I eat carnivore, and one of the things I always get into an argument about them online is it is not sustainable. You cannot feed the whole world off of cows. If everyone ate like I did, the we wouldn't have the space for it. And I think that is utter BS. I think you could do this en masse. You could do this basically globally because the cows don't they act with the environment as opposed to against it. So, Dan, what would be if you were to realistically answer that question? Like, could this be done on a global scale? Grass fed, grass finished, regenerative farming. Could you feed the world population like this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if you pull the rug out from underneath people's feet, it might not be possible next year if
Yeah.
every conventional method was illegal starting today and then next year. I think there'd be mass starvation if that was how it was pursued. But in a free market where this system is allowed to prove itself, it's proved it on my little 80 acres that in the grand scheme of things is insignificant to world food production. It has been much more productive for me and my family to do things this way. So why would it not be on larger and larger and larger scales? But if you want to get even crazier, rabbit production is possible in every backyard in America. Chicken production is possible in every backyard of America.
Yeah.
And if you had the number of chickens that would consume basically your table scraps, let's say it's 3 chickens in every house, there would be no need for industrial chicken egg production in the United States. That
Yeah.
would supply all the needs of chicken production. I heard a, a famous regenerative farmer, Joel Salatin, saying, "Well, instead of parakeets, why don't you just keep a chicken in your cage in your house? They're just as clean as a parakeet." And funny as that sounds, it's probably a better alternative.
Yeah.
But yeah, rabbits are just ridiculously productive. It's not just a funny stereotype, but a rabbit has 30-day gestation. So from when it breeds to when it has babies is 30 days. And it can rebreed after about, I forget if it's 2 or 4 weeks after it has babies. So we're cranking out 10 little rabbit babies that will grow to slaughter weight in 8 weeks. I guess whatever that is, every 2 to 3 months. So I mean, rabbits could pretty well feed your family if you had 2 or 3 mama rabbits. I mean, that produce quite a bit of protein. And as far as efficient grass to protein converters, rabbits are about 4 pounds to one. So they eat 4 pounds of grass and they turn that into 1 pound of meat.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever mowed your lawn and bagged it. I mean, would you trade
A
that
lot.
bag for about 5 pounds of meat? I think I would every day. That's good exchange right there.
Well, see,
really
the
good.
problem is right there. The rabbit has been anthropomorphized, meaning the Easter bunny and cute little bunny rabbits and all this other stuff. So if you had
Right.
rabbit burgers somewheres, like people would just lose their minds. It's kind of like I won't go down that route with horses, but it is one of those things
This
like
is literally a rabbit hole.
yeah, and we're digging. So, but yeah, the point is, I 100% believe you could feed the world like this. I think that talking point of there's just not enough space and we're running out of room and blah 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 is just it's propaganda. It's vegan propaganda at its finest. And turn on Netflix. There's I think about 5 to 10 specific documentaries designed to brainwash you into thinking that this cannot be done on any level. And it can. It has been done. I've seen it in person. Dan's doing it on a daily basis. It can be done. And it's such a weak talking point that, even if it didn't work, let's try it. Let's try it at a large scale, see if we can produce quality food for Americans and get America healthy. That's to go down this rabbit hole. We have a political candidate with RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., and he's talking about this stuff. And this is the first time that it's on a major political platform is the health of our country and the health of our children. We're poisoning ourselves. We're poisoning our children. We have to do something about that. And it can be done. And it starts with the farming practices and it starts with the food we're putting in our mouths.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about if you are a man watching this podcast, it's time. It's time to take authority and dominion over your household and the food that you're feeding your children, yourself, your wife. You can do this. It's not. You have to be intentional. You have to be just like you should be with anything else. And so you should be intentional, right? Spiritually disciplined, mentally disciplined, and with your body and financially, right? And so this is just one of those aspects that what do you have in your fridge, right? We have a section. We have meat, we have eggs, we have dairy, and guess what? My family loves this. We have great food. We have great dinners. We don't miss industrial sludge by any means. We don't miss those things. We love what we're doing, and it's keeping my family healthy. It's keeping me healthy, and I feel great. I have the clarity, and my mind has changed. Just I've been running this way for almost 2 years now, and I'm never going back. It's been a beautiful thing, and I think that as men take lead in their families to feed their families this way, it could really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And the hormonal impact, I mean, just look at that alone. Men's testosterone levels are absolutely in the gutter compared to prior generations. Our grandfathers had, I believe it's double the testosterone levels we have that we're walking around with today. And our children or that generation is going to have even less testosterone. And then the young girls, Daniel, you pointed this out to me a couple months ago that girls are entering puberty earlier and earlier based on the food that they're putting in their mouths and the garbage that we're eating as a culture.
Yeah, and I mean, it's shocking when you put the ages on that early puberty. They've redefined what is early puberty for girls. Year after year, they revise the number down, and they say early puberty is under 8 years old. Like, so if
Wow.
an 8-year-old is entering puberty as a little girl, that's not early puberty. It just blows my mind and sounds like I don't know every little detail of what made this go so wrong, but that is so wrong.
Yeah.
That is just,
Yeah. Well,
that's sick.
It lets you know how bad it is when the government's changing the standard for what the minimum is. Like they're moving
Right.
the goalposts. They're changing the game, they're rigging the game, and they're moving the goalposts. It's unbelievable the level that these corporations and entities will stoop to basically make profit and keep us sick and mentally, physically unwell and spiritually unwell.
So in
It's all
Europe,
connected.
they have actually different standards that they don't even allow some of the stuff that Americans allow, as you reference us as lab rats, Orion. I mean, it is unbelievable the stuff that America allows as consumers to be fed to us, and how we can be so ignorant to not even know what we're consuming and putting in our mouth, and why we're wondering why these diseases, why this sickness, why early puberty, why are all these things happening, why are we staying in the hospital, why is all this happening? Well, wake up. It's what you're consuming. It has a lot to do with the sicknesses that are coming your way, and the obesity levels and everything else going on. It's really unbelievable, but very clear what's happening in the United States.
Yeah. Follow the money. Follow the money. Let's wrap things up right there, you guys. I think we could easily go for another hour, but we'll stop right there. But before we break, Dan, where can people go to connect with you and Rooted Vision Valley Farms? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, probably the best way is our Facebook page, and that's just at Rooted Vision Valley. And yeah, if you direct message there or just want to see what we're about and browse some of those pictures and some of the things we've posted in the past, that's a pretty good place to get connected.
That'd be great. And if you're in the northern Colorado vicinity, when will you usually do an open house? Once to twice a year? Are you going to plan
That's
on
right.
it for the fall,
Well,
spring?
we love having people over to the farm. All my kids jump in on it. My wife jumps in on it. We love showing people around, seeing what we're doing. We just go find the cows wherever they're at, go look at chickens, collect eggs right out of the hen house. And so if you find us on Facebook and you want a tour of the farm, you can just direct message there, and we will set up a time that works for us and works for you. And otherwise, we do a spring fling, which is a big event in mid-May that just is an open house on the farm and have some more activities for kids. And just usually we've got the sheep grazing up in my front yard, grazing my lawn, making that a productive place instead of useless grass. And yeah, we do a little bit of like digging holes and looking at soil and root structures and a few talks about bees and a couple beehives that we have. And so that's a pretty fun time to come. And there's lots of baby animals. That's why we pick that time of year. Grass is green, just started greening up, came out of winter, and baby lambs, baby cows all over the place. So
yeah, I'll be looking
fun.
forward to it this year, and I'm definitely going to invite some of my vegan Facebook friends and see if we can get them out to show them.
Bring them down, man. Bring them down.
We will. Dustin, anything you want to wrap up with here?
Yeah, I mean, just not only is the Rooted Vision Valley just amazing to get your eggs from, your meat from, but Dan and the Clark family are just wonderful people, and they've been such a blessing to our lives, and just appreciate them so much. It's amazing to have friends that care about this kind of stuff, and to just be able to pursue what they love as their passion, and also be able to feed families. It's just a beautiful thing, man, and really glad to be a part of it.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Forged by Faith, and we will be back next week with another episode. Take care.